I'm really looking forward to this trip to Eugene, and I want to thank the Oregon Piano Institute for having me. My concert is going to be on April 14, 7:30 p.m. at the beautiful Bell Hall at the University of Oregon, and then the very next day, I'm giving a masterclass, April 15th, from noon to 2 p.m. I would love to see you there, and I'm really looking forward to sharing my love of music and hopefully some inspiration with the entire community. Well, I believe what Horowitz said, and he said, the concert is not the lecture. And the concert should also be like a meal. There should be an appetizer, a sort of starter, the entree, and some dessert. I think that to overwhelm an audience with too much music is also a big mistake. I think the pieces have to be chosen, they have to be harmonious with one another. And I think great pianists of the past really did this well. People like Rubinstein and of course Horowitz. Horowitz gave great thought to his programs. Also Richter, he really curated his programs very carefully. There's a story that when Horowitz met Andras Schiff, he asked Andras Schiff, "What are you doing in town?" And he said, I just played a recital. And he said, "What did you play?" He said, "I played the Goldberg variations and the Diabelli variations on either half." And Horowitz said, "What a terrible program. You're torturing the audience with such a program." Though, of course, I would love myself to hear Andras Schiff play that program. I think it would be wonderful. I'm trying to do something else and trying to give audiences a cornucopia of experiences musically that they can walk away with. So regarding the program, no, I didn't really have an idea to combine the mazurkas with the Kurtag Játékok or games. But what I had in mind was that this year celebrates Kurtag's 100th birthday. He's still alive, he's still working very hard, and I've always been fascinated by his music and its desire to bring us back to the roots of playing the piano, where we're not studying necessarily, but actually just playing with the instrument and discovering the sounds on our own. So Franz Liszt was a deeply misunderstood musical figure, and he continues to be misunderstood, in my opinion. I think people think of his music as flashy and without a lot of depth. I'm happy to say that opinions on Liszt have really changed during my lifetime, and people view Liszt with more seriousness and reverence now. But I will say that I think people misunderstood Liszt as the pianist he was. Not only was he the world's greatest pianist, and possibly the greatest pianist of all time, but he was a deeply serious musician. When Schumann first heard Liszt play, he wrote in his diary that evening, and he said, "Tonight, Clara and I heard Liszt, and we wept, period. Liszt is a genius of musical interpretation." That's really a very telling sentence. He didn't say Liszt had the greatest octaves, Liszt was the most precise pianist, Liszt plays faster and louder than anyone else. He said that Liszt was a great interpreter of music. And I think as an interpreter, it's hard to imagine someone who was freakishly technically gifted and also so compelling as a pianist. Those two things, they didn't come together. And I often tell people, imagine someone like Radulescu, but with the fingers of Hoffman or Rachmaninoff. Imagine what that kind of pianist would be. And I think we can get close to Liszt. Also, Liszt was a pianist who had comprehensive mastery over anything he did. He could play the wildest concert paraphrase and make audiences faint with excitement. And at the same time, we know from Mendelssohn, he could also play in a very strict and academic way. Mendelssohn said it was amazing his discipline and mastery over such a difficult score like Beethoven's Hammerklavier. So it's important to realize that Liszt as a figure, as a pianist, as a musician, is probably much larger and much more comprehensive than most people think. So much more to learn. Rachmaninoff said that one's life is enough for music, but music is not enough for one's life. Meaning you have so much music to discover that our lives on earth are never enough. I'm a believer that a person who is studying constantly is constantly developing. And I think it's very difficult to continue to develop as a musician with a smaller repertoire. The great teacher, Heinrich Neuhaus, he said, the pianist who plays 10 Beethoven sonatas is fine and good, but the one who plays 20 is a completely different musician. And it's been my goal to cover as much repertoire as possible, not only as a performer, but as a teacher. I feel that if I played less repertoire, I would be less effective as a mentor of students, because I don't have a set list of pieces that I give to my students. I just listen to someone and I hear a certain sound that reminds me of a certain piece, and I said, you know, I've never taught this piece or I've never learned it, but it would be perfect for you. And I think this study of the repertoire is something that is very important for young pianists. Now, as far as like dealing with refining the repertoire, I understand the pressures that young pianists are put upon now. Pressures that I didn't have, because the pressure to become perfect and to execute the music perfectly is much greater than it was when I was a student. I would say that you know, if you want to win competitions, of course you have to play cleanly. And that means that you probably have to be playing old repertoire. But that doesn't mean that you would stop studying repertoire. I think students can still pick up pieces and just sort of halfway finish them and put them away. You'll come back to them later and you will really develop as a musician that way. So my 3 etudes that I will play on this program actually come from a larger set of etudes which I've written throughout the course of my career. Each one of them is a sort of study of another pianist's style and tendencies and technical strengths and weaknesses. So the first etude, which I wrote when I was 19 years old, is dedicated to Marta Argerich and is sort of a Latin-based toccata with lots of repeated notes, which of course emulates Argerich's own types of playing. Now, of course, I don't pretend to play like Argerich, I just do my best. The second etude is dedicated to the great jazz pianist, one of my very favorite pianists, Keith Jarrett, and it is truly an improvisation. Every time I walk on stage, I'm never quite sure how it will begin or end, but at some point, the pianist must play the tune, My Funny Valentine. The third etude is dedicated to Vladimir Horowitz, and it is a brilliant concert transcription of the Queen rock song, We Are the Champions. And I made it more or less in the style of Horowitz's own transcriptions, particularly the 15th Rhapsody of Liszt.